this is Stephen Edwards from Cheltenham Tax Accountants. So I wanted to put something together just to be a little bit of a resource and potentially be a bit of a helping hand for some of our clients, because we're all in the same boat at the moment with everything that's going on. There's a lot of uncertainty. The news and situations obviously changing pretty much daily, and on a weekly basis, it can completely change. That we had the budget one week, and then the week after we had some completely new measures in terms of funding with the loans and the grants. So I just wanted to just do a bit of a recap where we are from our perspective, and also just re-emphasise any support we can offer you as a client. So, okay, I'll just go through the presentation. So, yeah, I think I've pretty much covered what it's going to be about. So, we've covered the purpose, what this webinar's about. So I'm just going to have a bit of an overview. It won't be too long. I don't want it to be an hour long, 40 minutes long. I'm hoping to keep it less than 20 minutes, so we'll see how we go. But I'm just going to cover a bit of an overview with what's going on with, the whole Covid-19 situation, and how we can potentially help you, and also how maybe you can help yourself. So that's what we're going to cover today. Frequency, so it's something I'd like to do a little bit more of in this situation. So I'm looking to hopefully do something at least weekly. So some form, even if it's just a 5-minute video with an update of what's going on. So I'm trying to make this a bit of a regular thing, to just inform you of any changes that are happening week to week with the situation. And so the agenda. So we'll talk about any changes recently in terms of, as I mentioned, the grants, the loans, anything that affect businesses. Cash management. So I'll just touch upon, it's probably the last thing on your minds, to be honest, and most small businesses do not have a proper cash management or cash forecasting system. I think it's a brilliant opportunity to, make people aware of that, because there's times like this when they realise that they could be pinched for cash. They haven't really got a system to know when the cash is going to run out. So I'll just do a quick overview of what you can do for free, something you can do yourself, and also touch upon some of the software that's out there, and and potentially how we could help you if it's something that was of interest to you. But I do think it's important for small businesses to have some form of cash flow forecasting. Most people probably just look at the bank, look at what bills they've got to pay. The big ones are obviously, particularly if you've got staff, it's going to be maybe rent, it's going to be rates, it's going to be wages, probably VAT bill, and any payments to HMRC, and paying yourself. That's probably the fundamental things. And then in addition to that, potentially any debt or anything you've got, or any accounts. Government funding, we'll have a quick overview of what's going on with the funding, where the situation is. The details are a little bit thin on the ground still, but we're getting a little bit of a better picture of how it's going to work. So I'll share that with you. We can also talk about some other funding options that might be available to small businesses. Some of them are obvious, but it's just recapping, what is potentially available to you. And also linking into the cash management forecasting, I think it's a good opportunity to take a step back and look at your business from a strategic perspective, because a lot of people are probably forced to not be involved in the day-to-day running of the business, which is unplanned. It's not what you wanted, but there's potentially an opportunity there to take a step back and look at your business a bit more strategically. And I can re-emphasise any support at the end that Cheltenham Tax Accountants and myself can help you with. And questions and answers, you can just see that at the bottom there. We're going to start putting, hopefully, if we get a bit of involvement and engagement in our Facebook page, and I'd love it if you could, I don't know where you're watching this, because we're going to share it on the Facebook page anyway, but if you haven't already, if you could join our Facebook group, and we'd love to get that a bit more involved in terms of getting discussions going on and sharing some general information with everyone. There's also a WhatsApp group. You've hopefully received the email to join that. So we're just trying to give you lots of different options to contact us and ask any questions you might have. Okay, so moving on. So anything that's going to change on a daily basis, if there's anything that's fundamental that changes with the situation in terms of it affects small businesses or taxpayers, then we will share that with you. If there's anything we feel is fundamental to be shared, we will send some form of communication to let you know of anything on a daily basis. As I mentioned, I'd like to do these sort of weekly videos just to recap anything, or just to summarise where we are with everything for the last week. And we'll also be reaching out to you by email of anything important. So hopefully that makes it virtually impossible for you to miss anything. We haven't got all the answers, but naturally clients are asking us, sometimes we maybe their first point of call, but because it affects so many businesses and we're all in the same boat, we are trying to keep up to speed as much as we can to be as helpful as we can for you. Also, our website is an evolving thing. We do share a lot of content on our website, so it's worth just keeping an eye on that from time to time as well. And yeah, so I mentioned Facebook in terms of social media. So cash management and forecasting. So I think it's a good opportunity to, again, it's common sense, and common sense is not always common practice. You know, sometimes we hear these things and we're like, yeah, I know about that, but we don't actually do it. And it's times like this where, you know, maybe you should follow through. Taking action is always the thing that makes the most difference. So reviewing your business and personal expenditure. So look at what things are essential. Naturally, there's going to be some things you can probably cut back. You know, I looked at my business last year, and obviously it's all relative for the size of your business, but we saved around £7,000 just cutting out lots of small things like a £25 a month subscription, a £20 a month or £30. They all added up, and we didn't feel we were getting value from them. So just look what's essential, what you need, and where you can potentially save some money. And when it's your business, the business and your personal expenses, it's all wrapped into one really, because it's all connected. The more you spend in the business, the less you've got personally available, and the more commitment you've got personally, the more you've got to take out of your business. So I would definitely review that from two angles, from the business perspective and also from a personal perspective. There is an interesting book I mentioned on the email I sent out to everyone recently called Profit First. And again, nothing too, completely new. The concept is essentially keeping your costs down, reviewing your expenses, but also this mentality of having smaller plates. So there's the idea, and I think they've proven this scientifically, that if you have a bigger plate and you fill up the plate with food, you tend to eat more than if you gave yourself a smaller plate with less food. I know it sounds really obvious, but we're eating with our eyes, not with how full we actually feel. And the idea is, if you ration your money in your business and create smaller pots of money, you're going to live, or you're going to run your business with, in a more streamlined manner. So lots of people might have a second account for their tax bill or their VAT bill. So I do think that's a really good idea to try and have these pots and also review your expenses. Review payment terms on loans you might have. I think, everyone's in the same boat. So it feels like a personal experience because it affects all of us and we're all worried about our own individual circumstances. But so many people are going to miss mortgage payments, they're going to miss loan payments, they're not going to pay their tax on time. So just speak to any creditors you might have. If you've got any loans or anything like that, see if there's anything available to you. Also, just to recap, I am working from home, so if you see any noise in the background with the dog or my son playing Fortnite, I apologise for that, but hopefully it doesn't. It's not louder than me speaking on this webinar. So just communication is the key, really, to speak to the bank and just see if there's anything they can do. Even if you feel you don't need it at the moment, it's not a bad idea to speak to them and open up that line of communication. On the same token, speak to a lender, see if you can increase the period that you're paying a loan, or whatever that facility is. If you can spread it over the longer period, it's going to help your cash flow. All these little things, in some instances they might not be little, but collectively they can add up to make a big difference. The whole idea of cash, the cash cycle of your business is how long it takes from you paying out a supplier to purchase something to when you actually receive the money from a customer. And if you can pay suppliers longer but receive money from customers sooner, that all helps your cash flow. So all these little things do make a difference. Again, same sort of idea. If you can defer any payments, that's great. And we'll look at the cash flow forecast in a bit more detail in a second. Oh, I apologise for the dog going off in the background. So the cash flow forecast, so I've put together a really basic spreadsheet because it's free. Most people have got Excel. You don't need software. Just to give you an idea what a basic cash flow forecast looks like. Some people get a bit confused between a profit and loss account and a cash flow forecast. Essentially, it's very similar to profit and loss accounts, but a profit and loss account, when you look at your end of year accounts, it doesn't matter about the cash timing of things. You might not have actually paid something out. If you've been invoiced, it might still show, well, it usually still shows on an accruals basis in your accounts. A cash flow forecast is only expenses that have physically gone out your bank, that you physically paid, need to be included. So all you would need to do is you'd have your opening cash position for the beginning of the month or the beginning of the week, whatever period you're looking at. You'd have your forecast income coming in, and then you'd have your forecast expenses going out. And looking at, if you've got software, it's a lot easier because you can look at the dates, it's all a lot tidier. And you can also, on another note, plug it into specific cash flow forecasting software that makes your life easy. But it's just looking at the timing, really. What do you expect to come in the next week or the next month? What do you expect to go out? And then update it on a regular basis. The worst thing you can do is to create a cash flow forecast and not look at it, because it's never 100% correct when you create it. Well, it's never 100% correct because we haven't got a crystal ball. But all we can do is our best effort of forecasting what the cash position's going to be like. So other options available to you. You can do it on Excel. You can also use, you might have saw something we shared in the last few weeks called Fluidly. So if you're a bookkeeping client of ours and we keep your books up to date normally on a monthly basis, then we can plug in Fluidly to Xero, your accounting software. If you do your own bookkeeping on QuickBooks, Xero, Cashflow, whatever the software is, then you can plug it in yourself. We can help you get set up, and it creates an automatic AI-driven cash flow forecast. So that's not a bad entry level. How accurate it is still to be decided because it's quite new software, but it's better than having nothing. And then the other option is to do a proper forecast, and a proper forecast does take a lot more work. If you're new to it, it might be quite challenging. We recommend using something like Float, but we're more than happy to give you any specific advice if you want to learn more about that. Okay, so the government's talked about some things they're doing for small businesses. The feedback we're getting from the rates is that it's going to be automatic. So to really summarise and cut long story short, it's not something you need to apply for. It's something that should be fed down to you from the local authority if you qualify for it. So if you're paying business rates, and most of you are going to be small businesses, I think your rateable value needs to be below £50,000. We have got a resource, a flow chart that can help you figure out where you sit in all of this. But if you're unsure, particularly if you do pay rates, then just give the local authority a call and just say, do I qualify for the new government incentive with rates? That's it, really. That's what you need to do. In terms of grants, they've been really thin on the ground. They've not confirmed any concrete details on how the grant's going to work. We're hoping in the next week or two we're going to get a bit more detail on exactly how these grants are going to work. But our understanding is, again, they're probably going to come through the local authority. So an option for you would be just to call your local authority, the local council, and just say, you know, you're struggling, or even if you're not struggling, you just let them know you're struggling and see what's available to you in terms of grants. Obviously, a grant is fantastic because it's not a loan. It's something that you don't have to pay back. In terms of government loans, basically they're backed by the government, but these new loans they talked about in the Chancellor a few days ago, you still need to go into your bank to apply for those loans. They're just backed by the government. So the lending should be a lot more relaxed. So you should have a really good chance of successfully getting a loan with your local bank because it's backed by the government. Interest rates should be quite competitive. I imagine there's some sort of customisation going on to your personal credit circumstances. There's probably still a personal guarantee of some sort, but ultimately it's backed by the government. But it does need to be repaid, so a grant is better. So just bear that in mind, is loans do obviously need to be repaid still. HMRC time to pay arrangements. So that's basically where if you're struggling to pay your VAT bill, sorry, if you just bear with me. Yeah, so HMRC time to pay arrangements, that's where HMRC have a dedicated department or helpline to discuss if you're behind on your corporation tax, your VAT, your self-assessment, your CIS, your PAYE. So our understanding is, and our feedback we're getting is, they've been a lot more relaxed than what they usually are in terms of allowing you to spread any payments you're due to make to HMRC. On another note, I can't say categorically this is what you should do, but because HMRC are obviously part of the government, there's an argument for them to be the last person you actually pay. If you're struggling in your business in terms of you know paying the basic bills in terms of your wages or paying yourself, paying your rent, then don't take this as professional advice, but there's an argument to say pay HMRC last, because they should be they want businesses to stay in business, essentially. So they wouldn't want that HMRC being the reason why you go out of business, because you're paying them, but you can't pay the other fundamental bills part of your business. But we're happy to discuss that in a bit more detail. Whoever normally looks after your from Cheltenham tax accountants, whoever looks after your corporation tax, your year-end accounts, your PAYE and your CIS, which is usually Barbara, just speak to them and they'll be able to give you some specific advice on what you owe personally. SSP, we're getting a lot of questions from clients naturally around SSP, because the government is throwing out all these wonderful things where they're saying that there's extended sick pay rules. But the email I sent a couple of days ago, it does explain in a bit more detail that essentially they've not rolled out the small print to small businesses yet, and the software does not reflect these new rules. So we are keeping our fingers on the post. We'll let you know as soon as we have the actual the rules in front of us and we know how it works. So if you're looking for a bit more information, just look at the email we sent a couple of days ago. It does explain and give you some links to HMRC. If you haven't got that email, just let me know and I can send it to you. Okay, so in terms of funding options, just a few things to think about is how quick do you need the money? There's obviously short-term versus long-term. A lot of people probably going to be looking at short-term gains at the moment. So for short-term, you're looking at speaking to your bank in terms of an overdraft. It's quick, it's easy. It could be probably in place potentially in a day or two. But it's not designed for long-term borrowing, really, an overdraft, although it can be an essential part of, as a buffer for you. And anything you do get yourself into, just look at the repayment terms, how long it is and how much it's costing you at the end of the day. Some lenders can be very clever in terms of disguising their costs, so they might have a low APR, but they might have a fixed amount that you pay at the beginning, and effectively it doesn't make the rate very attractive. So just bear in mind, look at the total cost of borrowing. How we can help you with funding is we do use a platform, and we do have a partnership with a company called Capitalise. Capitalise are essentially a bit like a money supermarket for business finance, really. So they do source the market and compare all of the different products out there. So they look at Funding Circle, they look at Capital on Tap, they look at all these different things, whether you're looking for a credit card, a loan, an overdraft, and they give you, they do some pre-checks, a bit like Money Supermarket, and they give you an idea of who might be suitable lenders for you. So we can help you because we've got all of or we should have, your up-to-date financial information, as up-to-date as it can be at the moment. And we can actually do a lot of the application for you, and we don't give you any advice in terms of what to actually take, but we can be a facilitator in terms of plugging in your numbers in the platform and looking at your options and giving you your options, and ultimately it's your decision, and you can speak to some of the people at Capitalise for any advice. But it's quite a popular tool with small businesses, and I'm happy to give anyone any more information on that, or if you want to speak to myself or someone in the team, we can get the ball rolling for you. Okay, so business strategy. So it's not, our main focus at the moment. Our main focus is cash in the bank. We know that. We want to pay our bills. We want to survive. We're in survival mode. But you might have a bit more time available to yourself at the moment. It's been forced upon you. I think it's a good opportunity to take a step back and get ready to weather this storm, in terms of when we come out the back end of it, then hopefully you can be stronger than you were before, or you've learnt some valuable business lessons. And we've never seen anything like this in our lifetime. We probably never will, but it can be quite humbling for a lot of people just to realise how fragile our businesses are, really, or the economy can be in these sort of situations. So I think it's really good to just weigh up. Your short-term goal is obviously to survive, but it's a good time to look at what you're trying to achieve longer term in your business, and what things can you potentially put in place to help you in the future. We're unlikely to have this sort of situation again, fingers crossed. What can you do to help your long-term strategic goals? What can you put in place? There's this concept of working on your business from helicopter view, looking down on your business, to working in your business. So you've probably been forced to not work in your business for the last few days, potentially next few weeks, months, whatever the time is. So it's a chance to work on your business a bit more strategically as the CEO, as the director of your business, how big or small it is, really. So quick wins, that will be obviously speaking to your bank, speaking to your local authority, see if there's anything you can do, reviewing your expenses personally and for the business to see if there's any cash flow savings you can make there. And also, on the whole strategy front is, can you have any more revenue streams? I know it sounds really obvious and really standard nowadays, but can you have a second stream of income online? People that do courses, for example, traditionally that's been in a classroom, but there's lots of online courses nowadays, and people do pay a lot of money if they're valuable, and the people teaching are giving them information that's relevant to them in their business or their careers. Is there anything you can do in the online space? So that just links into the whole strategy side of things. Okay, just to confirm in terms of our support, so we're going to try and give you something on a weekly basis, an update of what's been going on, and anything that we feel affects you as a small business owner or a taxpayer. I'm more than happy to have a one-to-one call with you or your client manager. So that's normally Simon or Richard or Angela or Lindsay, reading off all the names. But any of us from the team is more than happy to book in a call. And we freed up a bit of capacity in the last couple of years. We've tried to be clever in terms of how we implement our processes and technology. And ultimately, we want to provide a fantastic service, and we want you to do well. And we have got that time available to book in and have a chat with you one to one. If you've got any concerns, we've got any questions on what's going on, or from the video I've put together today. And so, as I mentioned, I'll be sending some regular email updates. And I'm keen to get some sort of engagement, interaction on Facebook in terms of our questions and answers. And the final thing that I just missed there was just be aware of any scams, because there are a few people trying to be opportunistic, sending emails about funding and loans and grants and all that sort of stuff, and just trying to take advantage of you. So thanks guys, thanks for watching, and speak to you soon.